martial arts, there's something called mushin, mind without the mind. In combat, you can't be dwelling on thoughts or fear or worry. Things become instinctual. In other words, you've burned the response into your central nervous system. Some guys would say that's achievable through tremendous amounts of drilling. I call it mindful repetition. What's mindful repetition? It's not just drilling, but when you're specifically practicing the movement in a safe haven, you can really break it down and mentally create situations where you can see yourself performing that function. So although drilling may seem robotic and you're not necessarily maybe practicing the entries and some other components of that movement, when you do spar or roll in the dojo, by practicing the distilled movement over and over and over again, it really helps you to take, for example, a front kick or an arm lock or a choke and utilize that technique in a multitude of situations. Now, as far as reaching that state in a competitive environment or in a self-defense situation, or even in business, cold calling, how to handle objections and in negotiations. When I actually won the lightweight knockdown championship, I was 21 years old. I had already competed twice and not placing or placing second. In that tournament, I decided that I was going to follow some of the precepts of my master, Shigeru Oyama, and drill repeatedly. One of his philosophies was when you came to class, you're not coming to class to do push-ups and sit-ups. These are things you should be doing on your own. So tremendous physical conditioning should be done outside the dojo and refinement of technique. But I want you to keep in mind the concept of mindful repetition, which is basically just heightened practice. Practice with a purpose. I want to show you how I set up my Basement Warrior workout. Very humble. One perk that I do have is this 70-inch TV where I get to almost get up close and personal with some of the greatest fighters on the planet. If I'm working on something on my training dummies or on the bag, and I have a question or I'm confused about something, take a look at, the thousands and thousands of videos. So here I'm looking at highest level of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Thai boxing. You can see I can set it up here. Bukwa is an amazing Thai fighter, probably one of the greatest strikers on the planet. And then also from here I can go right to submission grappling, which I think is, really revolutionary and taking over the combat world. Have my gis, some training equipment, the grappling dummy. This is what I use indoors. It doesn't have to be high power. You'll see here when I get into the mindful repetition techniques, I broke it down by ranges, right? So you have a punching and kicking range. Then we get into self-defense, striking vital points on the face, and then actually the uchikomi that I did at the outset of the video. Here's an area, some people call it a shrine. This is just my homage to the masters before me and some of my instructors like Edson Carvalho, Sensei Hioki, also Oishi Sensei and Soshu Oyama. Soshu Oyama's instructor, Mas Oyama. So there's a direct lineage there. And then obviously Jigoro Kano from Judo. Soshu Oyama, he loved fighting. So there was always a lot of sparring going on in the class. Again, the last thing we really wanted to focus on is that you had the endurance and the physical ability. That all had to be done outside so that you can really benefit from long sessions of whether it be rolling, sparring, grappling, no-gi, etc. Mindful repetition is twofold. Building up the endurance and also calibrating your techniques so that when you apply them in a roll, they become instinctual. That mushin, that mind of no mind. In this first module, self-defense module, I'm basically working on striking the vital points with particular weapons. But if you don't practice it, it's just not going to become second nature. Just the way you throw jabs, cross, hooks, uppercuts in the gym. Very simply, when you're practicing the movement here on the dummy, at least you're going to be able to feel what fingers are involved in the strike. You don't want to hit the forehead. You could jam or break your fingers. Now you see in MMA a lot of times just accidentally, in order to keep distance, there's an eye gouge, and that has ended fights. So if you're consciously working on this technique, just think about how dangerous that would be in a live fighting situation if you're being grabbed or if you have to create space for a movement to take down or put a finishing hold on it, or at a minimum being able to get out. If he cannot see, when you hit here, automatically eyes start tearing. Same thing, back knuckle to the bridge of the nose, chicken beak, right? Or crane type of motion into the eyes. Let's say somebody grabs, you see a lot of fancy movements here, but if I attack the eyes with the thumb, so here's 3 basic movements: eye gouge, thumb technique, chicken beak, palm, heel to the nose, palm to the chin, opens up the throat. I can strike with the leopard paw or half fist here, or I can strike with the knife edge. When you've seen me practicing on the makiwara, you've seen this when I set up the reverse punch, I set it up with the strike to the throat, also with the 2 knuckles to the temple. Another effective technique is, it's not a slap, but what I'm doing is I'm cupping my hand, right? You can see the cup motion here, and I'm going right over the ear. If you strike your own ear with the cup, just do it lightly. You can feel, you can hear a ringing, right? You can burst somebody's eardrum. So if you were to practice them, just drill them, even if it's once or twice a week, set of 50 to 100. Again, you're just burning it into the central nervous system, right? Strikes to the throat, right? The karate chop. Okay, this is actually very effective here. We attack this area with a rear naked choke. You can do the same thing with a striking movement here. Now, when is this? I'm not going to fight here and then throw a karate chop. These are things that happen in situations. You're in a subway car, an elevator. You're walking down the street and you're in a ATM or something like that, and you're being grabbed. You can't square off and start going into MMA mode. You have to be able to utilize striking techniques that at least create an opportunity to escape or neutralize or nullify the opponent's ability to continue on his attack. Now, just a commentary on jiu-jitsu. You see a lot of fancy locking, arm locks, even wrist techniques. I think in a street fight, I've seen guys get hit with a baseball bat, a beer mug, and still end up fighting. Imagine even with a broken ankle or a wrist, the adrenaline rush is still there. The guy's got one hand, he can still fight. But you take his eyes out, or you go into a choking technique and shut him down just like you shut down a computer. Those to me are more effective. In this module on striking techniques, I elaborated on this in my karate boxing connection tape. Now what I tried to do is almost create a formula for building combinations, right? One after the other. So, here I'm working on the jab, for example, right? And again, getting back into that mindful repetition, I might just spend 10, 20 minutes just working on this, making sure I hit with the proper knuckles, right on the jawline or right at the nose. This is very important, right? Each time I try not to telegraph the movement, right? I have my little weight distribution here into my lead leg, right? Then I got the cross, again, with the proper body mechanics. I'm not going to get into the actual technique themselves. What I want to work on is show you how I build up my combination blueprint. So jab, right, cross, right, then you got hooks. Here, this can also help me. In order to set up the lead hand hook, I got to do the V formation, right, the slipping. So this motion here, hook, right, hook, hook. Then from here, I work on uppercut, right? Right now, I'm going to stick with the same height, which is the jaw, right? So jab, cross, hook, hook, uppercut, uppercut, jab, cross, hook, hook, uppercut, uppercut. Then I can go with heights, right? Jab, cross, hook, hook, uppercut, uppercut. So I do a level change here. Instead of the face, then I go to the body. Right? Body. Same technique. Then I can start working on jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Right? Jab, cross, uppercut, hook. Jab, cross, uppercut, hook. Jab, cross, uppercut, hook. Right? Then I can work on the height. Right? Jab, cross, uppercut, hook. Jab, cross, uppercut, hook. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Now I can practice on changing the levels. Right? So here's the basic one. Jab, cross, hook, hook, uppercut, uppercut. Right? Jab, cross, hook, hook. Jab, cross, high, middle. Jab, cross, high, middle. Jab, cross, middle, high. Jab, cross, middle, high. Jab, cross, middle, high. Then I can go jab, cross, middle, middle. Jab, cross, middle, middle. Middle, middle, high. Middle. Right? Then I can work on it like that. 1, 2, uppercut. Right? Jab, cross, body, high. Jab, cross, middle, high. Jab, cross, middle, high. Jab, cross, high, middle. Jab, cross, middle. Jab, cross, high, middle. Right? Then I can start working on more combinations. So I got double jab, right? Double jab. Double jab. Jab, cross. Jab, jab, cross. Jab, jab, cross, hook, hook. Jab, jab, cross, hook, hook. Uppercut, uppercut. Jab, jab, cross, hook, low, high. Jab, jab, cross, high, middle. Jab, jab, cross, 1, 2, 3, 4. Jab, jab, cross, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, jab, high. This motion here, double jab, cross. Now you can work off the lead hand, right? So jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, hook, uppercut. To the same height. Jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, hook, uppercut. Adding a go heights. Level change. Jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, jab, hook, uppercut. Jab, jab, hook. Right? 1. So 1. And do jab cross, lead hand. Jab cross, lead hand. I'm trying to condition my body to be able to naturally change levels, use different techniques and combinations as the opportunity warrants. Everybody wants to show how hard they can throw a punch, right? What their movement is. But if you think, try to calibrate and work on your combinations. So you got the guy in the corner, he's in a little bit of trouble. But if you start lighting him up, you know where combinations. Every shot has a purpose, right? Where the heights are. And as you progress, you start adding the footwork, turning, this motion here, jab. What that does is, it really makes you think. Now, as you're sparring, you can start, right? Person throws a jab, bam. Then I know right away, jab here. I can evade And then I create a situation where I can hit from any angle and any height. Exactly what I just applied to my punching techniques, I'm going to apply to my kicking techniques. So from here, lead leg front kick. Again, I'm not looking for power, okay? I see guys throw kicks on YouTube and they knock the dummy, the bob over, big deal. What I want to see is precision, front kick, lead leg, reverse leg, lead leg, reverse leg, right? Lead leg, round kick, lead leg, front kick, back leg, round kick, right? Lead leg, front kick, spinning back kick. I've seen some guys teach the back kick where they're going to turn, they assess the target, and then kick. If you're doing a back kick, that's too late. The assessment is here, right? Or I might know if I go to turn, he may move his body. So I have to be able to set this thing up where my sight assessment is immediate, like a laser dot, okay, on a rifle. So if I see his solar plexus available, I need to be able to go right into the technique. I cannot assess the target and then kick. That's too late. So when you see effective back technique, same thing with the spinning techniques. That's where that mindful repetition comes in. My goal is each time is to make sure that I get to that target as quickly as possible. So I might have to work on different ways to turn. The idea is that this front foot shifts very quickly to the target, right? This motion here. It almost becomes like a whipping motion in the strike. And my objective is to get the technique down to a science. Then I can start working on the combinations up here, okay? Whether I do high kicks, low kick combinations, that type of motion here. So that's how I want to work on my mindful repetition. Now we get into the standing grappling mantra. In this case here, what I did was also added a hand weight underneath the bob platform or base in order to give him the appropriate angle so that when I work my entries, it's a little bit more realistic. It's almost as if he's coming in at me so that I can also understand the idea of when is the right time if I should off balance my opponent. By no means is this replacing live drilling, but remember the idea of mindful repetition, taking a basic technique and practicing it over thousands and thousands of times. The one benefit of this drill is this type of drilling is that if I'm doing live sparring or live drilling with another opponent, sometimes I'm always just reacting, I'm being defensive. In this case here, if I don't do anything, nothing happens. So I'm initiating the attack. So it's constantly making me think of combinations and how to be offensive. When I start the training, I was working on basically, right? You have the traditional judo grip, but here worked on grabbing just the sleeve and practicing this over and over again, right? This motion here, right? Something as simple as this. The traditional Japanese style has the hip forward. You have the more European motion here. So here's the traditional grip. Right? So we got starting out with the simple gripping technique. This motion here, the traditional judo grip. Now notice each time I'm letting go of the gi. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm actually keeping the grip on the gi here. So momentarily here I can off balance and control, off balance and control this motion. Right from here, same side grip. Right, then back. Then back. Now I can do cross grip here and come to the side. Cross grip here. So I'm going low and grabbing high. Going low, grabbing high. Low, high. Low, high. Low, high. I'm just going to go through a series of different throws and entries, working on the gripping techniques. I have the judo chart there, so sometimes I can pick the 5 or 6 I want to focus on, or if I want to just go through a marathon, pick one throw, do it 100 times or 1,000 times. I might do 10 throws, 10 each. But again, the idea is to just make it a reflexive and offensive type movement, so you can get the mechanics in when you're doing the live sparring. Sometimes I over-exaggerate my head movement because that's always been one of my weakest. I've always tried to look at myself doing the technique, but if I consciously make sure I turn my head, right, when I'm practicing this drill here, I'm doing a back high collar grab here, which can lead into a hip throw. But again, it's just practicing this movement. Crossing the feet in a certain way here and here. So sometimes I hit the base, right? So when I'm doing, for example, the Ippon Seoinage, my back heels hit the base, so that tells me that I penetrate deep enough, right? You see, when I'm performing the Ippon Seoinage in competition, I get deep into the person's stance. So I draw him off balance, get in deep and down where I go below his belt, right? So this motion, again, just 100 times. Right here, Uchikomi. 1, 2. This motion, this entry for Uchikomi is very valuable for, you've seen the switch movement, right? You've seen that in my tournament footage, where I fake the front attack and then go to the rear with either a Kosoto, right, or Tani Otoshi movement. So again, right, Uchikomi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's Ippon Seoinage. 1. Notice getting in deep, getting below the belt, tight here. Heels into the base. Both grips I can practice so that this motion on both sides. Or same side motion here to practice the motion here, right? Cross grip high. This motion here, same side. Tai Toshi. It's making me think. This motion here. One, 2, 3. Then you have the entry. Take Ippon Seoinage. Uchikomi with the Kosoto and with the throw. Komiyashi. Okay, in this next module I get into ground control, particularly starting out with guard retention drills. I mean, most importantly, what I'm trying to do is just keep myself loose. I'm not going to be using inversion guard and all these fancy techniques, berimbolo, de la hiva, in a street fighting technique or even in an MMA situation. But when practicing in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club, it's just nice. It's a thinking man's game, so it allows me to be sharp, stay on top of the techniques, the evolution. So I want to be able to be comfortable on my back. And what do I mean by that? With the bob set up this way, if I get in close enough, it forces me to keep my knees tight into my chest. And we all know that this is one of the ways to prevent your guard from being passed, right? Is high knee to chest. All right, I work on the grips a little bit, nothing fancy. You know, I work on this motion here, the spider guard, just to get a feel for the movement, right? This motion here, right? Different heights of the body, different angles. This motion here just gives me some gripping training here and also keeping my knees up. Then I can work on this motion here, my scooting, my power, shrimping techniques, right? Then also from here, hooking and changing up my guard retention. Doing this, try doing this 100 times. Now, the flatter my back is, the more difficult it is. So again, notice how it's forcing me. It's forcing me to keep that turtle shell on my back to allow me to move, right? And I can add the framing in there. This motion here. Now again, not very technical, but when you're doing this hundreds of times, then you can start adding inversion using the frame, inversion, or the traditional inversion movement here. Again, keeping my knees tight. Right? Motion, shrimping, guard retention, inversion. I wanted to conclude with just a brief discussion about mindful repetition. I didn't want to make this just a technique video where I try to show you 100 different ways to do something. Actually, I wanted to show you the right way to do one thing. This is going to be a critical factor in you to break through a plateau or excel, not only in sports or self-defense, but even in the business world. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to putting some more material together for you. Also,